Hey everybody, Reach Legal here, and today we're doing a tutorial on landscape sketching. So I just did a tutorial on architectural concepts, and unfortunately my video cut out before I could show how to do the landscape under the building. So today the whole tutorial is going to focus on how to make quick landscapes that fit with your architectural drawings, or can just stand on their own. So all my sketches are starting with a light marker, this time a W3 Copic marker, which is a warm marker, and we're going to be drawing a base rectangle in perspective that we're going to use as the foundation for the whole sketch. So once the base is drawn, you're going to go through and start drawing all the organic pieces that make this feel like it's not a product, but something you'd actually see in nature out in real life. So I'm starting by drawing rocks, trees, squiggly lines, and it's being super loose with it. So now I can take my thin, medium, and thick pens to go in, make my coloring book that I can fill in with marker. So I'm starting with my thin hybrid Technica 05 and going in and drawing all of the thin line work. Later on, we're going to use the medium line weight, which is a Papermate Flair, and then the thick line weight, which is a Pentel sign pen or a good old Sharpie. So here you can see I'm trying to define what our sketch is actually going to look like, drawing the outlines of the rocks, the trees, the base, the edges of the actual piece of dirt that is coming out of the ground. So that way we can start adding colors like this. So now I'm picking my light source, which is going to go from the left to the right. And here we're going to use a warm 3 and then a warm 5 to start adding in that contrast and depth to show that the shadows are coming from left to right. And once we have this going, we can start adding some colors into making it deeper. So here we're using a Prismacolor light umber that I'm going to start using as an extra depth layer for my shadows because it's going to actually pick up some darkness just from being outside. And then from here, we're going to use a lot of stippling. I love using lots of different colors so you can start building that depth and layering. So here we're using 3 Copics, which are going to be an E33, an E34, and an E13. So those are going to stipple and layer to make all the different bits and pieces of our dirt. And next, in the darker area, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a Prismacolor Sienna Brown and a Prismacolor Sepia. Now once this base layer is done, I'm going to go and add a little bit of contrast to the trees. So we're going to give them a nice warm C3, and then we're going to give them a nice little light peach Prismacolor. So once all this is going in, I think there should be a little more depth. So I'm going to add a few little dark lines with a warm 9, and then I'm going to go and throw in the nice little details of the roots coming down from the bottom of this structure that's floating in space using a Prismacolor light tan and a Prismacolor light walnut. So once all the browns are done, I like to go in and start adding all the details like the grass. So here we're using a Copic G24 and a Copic YG97, and we're just going to go and put some light strokes to show grass, overlaying things, doesn't matter where they go, trying to make it nice and loose. But the problem with markers is that they're transparent. So when you actually want to have things that are covering other parts, you want to use a paint marker. So for here, we're going to use a Deco Color light green and a Deco Color green to go above and beyond the marker itself and cover up some of the pieces so it actually looks like the grass has some thickness to it and some opacity. And then once we go with that, we're going to put some more details and get some actual Prismacolor Verithin or Prismacolor regular colored pencils to add some depth and kind of just use the texture of the paper to add some more detail to the actual dirt itself. But once this is done, actually I'm not even going to use a pen at all. I'm just going to use my marker and try and add in some loose leaves. So here I'm using the Copic G24 and then the Copic YG97 to throw in some leaves. And then I'm going to go and add a few bits and pieces and imperfections on here so I can actually show that it's wood. And then on here you can also see I've taken my Verithin white pencil and added some details for highlights because we did the shadows. You always have to have lights and darks, and you want to make these things really pop so that way it looks like you can tell the light source, having to think about it too much. Finally, we're going to add some more depth on the bottom, putting in some really dark markers using the Sepia and a Copic warm 9, and then going in and adding my signature white highlights in the whole thing using our Sakura jelly roll. And then it's kind of looking at it and saying, what is not looking great? What can I add some more depth with? So I want to add a little bit of a darker line, tiny bit of blue for some shadow of the actual sky, and then an actual shadow on the ground so it sits it in space and you actually see that it's floating. Obviously, this is a fictional space that land can actually float, but for here it's fun to look at. And now you can see we have this quick landscape. It's not perfect. It's supposed to be something that sits in the background, so your architecture drawing can actually be the hero of the space. But this is something that's just enough information that you get where it is, you get the context, and here you go. Happy sketching, guys.